Fiscal responsibility is an important subject for any elected official. If the Valley County Commissioners set a budget of $1 million for the sheriff, and the sheriff returns or spends $999,000, you just can't sit there and proclaim you're fiscally responsible. Fiscal responsibility is more than just coming in under budget. Fiscal responsibility is ensuring that every tax dollar that we spend is spent wisely and on things that we need, not want. And unfortunately, in my experience, in both the Air Force and at the Valley County Sheriff's Office, there are times that we buy things that aren't needed, they're wanted. And those are rarely the things that are best for the agency. We have to ensure that we are taking care of the taxpayers' money. To me, there's nothing more sacred than a tax dollar. Because when you look at how taxes are derived, our citizens of Valley County have worked hard and they have to pay a tax. And being a business owner and a homeowner in Valley County, I'm in that same lot. And I got to tell you, during the recession, when things were tight, and I had the theater, and my wife and I were struggling like everybody else to get by, living paycheck to paycheck. We went in, to pay our taxes, and it was tough. Sometimes we weren't exactly on the day on time. We did what we could to get by. And when you watch on tax day, because I've had the ability to be there, and you watch all the other taxpayers come in and pay their taxes, you realize that that's where the money's coming from. It's coming from those moms and pops, your brother, your sister, just your neighbor. You see that that's where the tax money is coming from. It's not coming from Washington, D.C. It's coming from our local citizens. And it makes it that much more important or sacred because we know where this money came from. And it's our responsibility to safeguard that money and ensure that it's being spent in the wisest possible way. One of the first things I would do is implement a strategic purchasing plan. I think that's an integral part of ensuring that we're spending money in a thoughtful and needed way. If it's not within the strategic plan, then either the strategic plan needs to be rethought, or there's a reason it's not in the strategic plan. So we have to ensure that we have a mechanism set up to weed out the things that we just don't need and that maybe need to be looked at through grant sources or any other mechanism besides the taxpayer. It is my goal to ensure that every fiscal dollar that we spend in the sheriff's office was a wise and needed purchase. And I promise I will institute a purchasing program that will ensure that we are not wasting or just not being wise with your money. Those are things that have to be done. Fiscal responsibility, when you look at that mushroom of that tax dollar, there are other sources that we can go after to fund projects. Similar to what I've done with my thought and initiative to bring drug resistance education into all Valley County schools. That was a very simple thought for me as far as man, we're not doing this and we haven't done it. We have to do this. When you see our youth become addicted to these illegal substances, nothing is more heartbreaking because that could be my child. It could be my neighbor's child. These are our citizens. We know these people. It's a small community, and that's why most of us like living here because we know everybody. So the drug epidemic does impact us through the people we know. And so drug resistance education was a very simple piece to go. There's a massive bang for that investment to give back to our taxpayers because we can start educating our youth from kindergarten all the way through high school in an age-appropriate way to ensure we're giving them the tools of resistance. The program, a gentleman stepped forth, one of our local citizens who just wants to help. That's all he wants. He doesn't want to see another child die from drugs. And because of a caring citizen like him, we're going to be able to roll this program out without a cost to the taxpayer. And I believe we have some of the finest citizens in the world in Valley County who selflessly give without even being asked. And that's what happened with my drug canine program. Husband and wife stepped up and said, we want to purchase 4 canines for the Valley County Sheriff's Office. And I explained to them the cost, that it's not cheap. And they still want to give us, the community, that gift, because they know it's an integral part of drug enforcement, is being able to detect the presence of those illegal drugs. And graciously, these 3 people have stepped up, and I believe are going to start a contagious effort in Valley County that is our citizens giving back selflessly. I believe that if we're responsible and we show our taxpayer that we're responsible, that they'll do more than just pay their taxes, that those out there that can help will step forward and help. So it makes it easier on all of us, because those expenses, if we were to ask the taxpayer, there are legitimate expenses, but it would increase the overall sheriff's budget. And that's not what I want to do. I want to make it easier on the taxpayer, or at least let the taxpayer know that their money is being spent in a very systematic, thoughtful, needed way, so that way we're not having any waste. I come from the federal government in my military service, where it was fraud, waste, and abuse. And I believe that we need to implement those kind of programs to ensure that there is no fraud, waste, or abuse of the precious taxpayer money. It's important. Whether it be programs that are started in the jail, that were started while I was there, to bring in out-of-county inmates. So those out-of-county inmates, every night they're there, the agency that's holding them is billed $85. When you start housing 20 to 40 inmates, it adds up. And that's money that you can use to offset the expense of the jail. These are all things that can be sought after to lighten the burden on the taxpayer. Just like grants, whether it be grants I wrote for the Emergency Operations Center to help fund that project, or new county boats, down to a forward-looking infrared FLIR system to help us find persons in distress at night in the water. After the Payette Lake fatal boating crash that I responded to, and was helpless to try to help these people that were in need that night, I knew it was something I had to fix. And so I wrote a grant, and it was funded, and we were able to do that at no expense to the Valley County taxpayer. We need a forward-looking sheriff who's going to take the matters that are important to our community, such as fiscal responsibility, and we need a sheriff that is going to start that program and basically make it a foundational approach to how the sheriff's office conducts business. I'm your candidate, and I would like your vote on May 19th or June 2nd, however you want to look at it, because you got to request your ballot by May 19th, but make sure you get it sent back in by June 2nd. Thank you.